About 150 years ago, a fleet of sailing vessels carrying the first white settlers to Australia dropped anchor in the harbor of Sydney, and the combined tonnage of that fleet, consisting of 11 vessels, was less than a tenth of the tonnage accredited to the huge monster which now brings us into the same harbor. Our ship is the largest that ever sailed into these waters, and it naturally creates tremendous interest among the inhabitants, who turn out to witness its arrival in every kind of craft imaginable. But of greater interest to us is the harbor itself, and immediately after disembarking, we start out on a tour of inspection. The first and most conspicuous object of interest is the celebrated Sydney Bridge, officially opened in 1932 and said to be the largest of its kind in the world. Inclusive of the approaches, this famous bridge is 2 3/4 miles in length, and the total cost of its construction was approximately £10 million. It has often been referred to as the engineering wonder of the age, and engineers from all parts of the world have visited Sydney to inspect this 20th century achievement, which we feel is a commendable tribute to the foresight and enterprise of the Australian people. For 13 miles as the crow flies, Sydney Harbour extends inland from the sea, but owing to its numerous bays and promontories, its shoreline is almost 200 miles in length, and it has been well preserved from the uglier encroachments of commercial enterprises. Aside from numerous bathing beaches, a colorful variety of homes and gardens along the shores gives to the harbor the atmosphere of an exclusive summer resort with a 20th century skyline. Boating, fishing, surfboard riding, and swimming are the popular sports, and they are engaged in with a spirit of gaiety that is fittingly expressed in the words of a song, which we dedicate to Bondi Beach, one of Australia's most popular playgrounds.
Sunny days, starry nights on the beautiful beach of Bondi. What a chance for romance within everyone's reach here at Bondi. Every breeze from the seas whispers, please hurry back, for we miss you. Troubles will fly, bid them goodbye, here on the beautiful beach of Bondi.
A swimming race at Bondi often begins with a dash into the sea, followed by a tremendous tussle with the rolling surf. The best swimmer in this kind of a race does not always win, for even though he may be the first out of the water, he still has that 100-yard dash ahead of him, and very often the fastest sprinter overtakes him and wins the race. Last but not least are the Australian bathing beauties. Only these girls are just part of the crowd, proving that the average girl at Bondi might qualify as a bathing beauty anywhere. And it is with this thought that we most reluctantly say farewell to Bondi Beach and transfer our sightseeing to a roof garden overlooking the city of Sydney. As we gaze upon the modern skyline of this second largest city in the British Empire, it is difficult to believe that less than a century ago, it was just a tiny village trying to establish white civilization down under the equator, thousands of miles from nowhere. Mothered, as it were, in the watery arms of its glorious harbor, Sydney has grown in leaps and bounds, so that today it has a population of 1.25 million inhabitants, over 90% of whom are of British stock, proud of the freedom and the progress of their own country, yet loyal to the land of their forefathers, speaking its language and living up to its best traditions. The Commonwealth of Australia is composed of 6 states, the most populous of which is New South Wales, with Sydney as its capital. Each of these states is governed by a parliament, over which a premier presides. And speaking of premiers, here is the Honourable Bertrand Stevens, who, in addition to being the Premier of New South Wales, is a splendid example of the hard-working type that has contributed so much to the general welfare of Australia. In the suburbs of Sydney, we find picturesque and colorful parks, abounding in subtropical vegetation and a general atmosphere of peace and tranquility. The Taronga Zoological Park and Aquarium, one of Sydney's chief attractions, is noted for its rare specimens of plants and animals and birds, not the least of which are the kookaburras, also known as the laughing jackasses of Australia, on account of their laughter-like calls. One of nature's greatest freaks is the duck-billed platypus, which is at ease in water as well as on land. It has a fur coat, a beaver-like tail, and webbed feet. It quacks like a duck, cries like a baby, and, believe it or not, it lays eggs and suckles its young. But look who's here, little Billy Bluegum Koala, Australia's most lovable animal. These little bears are nocturnal in their habits, and consequently most of their daylight hours are spent in sleep. At night, they prowl about from tree to tree, seeking a certain type of eucalyptus leaf, which is their only food. At about 4 years of age, koala is fully grown and may live for 15 or 20 years in Australia, but nowhere else. This gigantic clock is only one of the many floral attractions in Taronga Park, but unfortunately it serves to remind us that the time we allowed for our tour of Sydney is drawing to a close. In our travels around the globe, we have compared the world's great harbors with each other and have sincerely praised their respective merits. But we feel that Sydney Harbour, with its extensive coastline, picturesque promontories, and colorful bays, all harmoniously blending with the achievements of man, forms the composite picture of all the great harbors and fully deserves its reputation as the grandest and most beautiful harbor in the world.